It's Sunday night, it's 9:30, and it is time for the Gersnet Podcast, the totally free Rangers show run by the fans, for the fans, and as always, we are absolutely live. If you are joining us live tonight, then welcome along. Remember, you can get involved, as always, in the show by leaving us your comments and your questions on the YouTube stream. I'll be keeping my eye on that throughout the show, and we'll get to as many of those as possible. The pod will also be available to download from Monday morning, so make sure you subscribe and you will never miss a thing. As always, we're available on iTunes, Google Play, Acast, Castbox, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere else you can think of. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Some happy news from all of us here at Gersnet this week is that we hit the number 2,000 subscriber mark on the YouTube, which is absolutely massive for us. So if you're one of those who subscribed, then from all of us here, we just want to say a huge and sincere thank you for supporting our wee show. Tonight on the pod, we're going to be taking a look back at our return to Scottish Cup action, as well as previewing the visit to St Mirren in midweek. We'll also take a wee look at all the latest news from Ibrox and the Hummel Training Centre, of course, of which there's been quite a lot this week. In case you're new and you've not picked up the names yet, my name's Ross Bennett. I'm going to be your Gersnet podcast host this evening, and I am delighted to be joined by two heavyweights of the Rangers content universe. First up, we have a man who sends more WhatsApp messages than anyone else I've ever met. Welcome along to Colin Armstrong. Colin, did you know that my missus is actually suspecting that I'm being unfaithful because of the amount that my phone is buzzing because of your messages?
Well, it's nice to know I'm getting you in trouble, Ross, so that's always a bonus in life, isn't it? I find that a scurrilous accusation, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's nice to be here, thank you.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's quite clear from the standard of patter that comes through on the WhatsApp that your Twitter feed is it's clearly filtered that the top 20 to 30% of your patter makes it onto
Twitter. No comment at all.
That's fine. Also, it is the ever popular John McCallum. John, how did you pass your time over the winter break?
Well, I practiced for this.
Well, it doesn't show. Right.
To be honest, the last time I was on, they had somebody on who was an expert on youth football, who'd seen thousands and thousands of youth football matches for Rangers. Guy was a complete expert. And the time before that, they had a professional journalist. So to be honest, I'm just really pleased it's you two tonight.
Huh?
I don't know why I do this, guys. Honestly, just to get abused every week.
No, we don't know why you do it, and certainly neither do the listeners. Right, guys, before we get started, and I know I've done an intro that's already taken over 4.5 minutes, so apologies for that. But before we get going tonight, it wouldn't be right to crack on without first paying our respects to probably the first great Rangers goalkeeper of the modern era, the Hall of Famer Bobby Brown, who very sadly passed away this week at the age of 96. Bobby made 296 appearances for Rangers, keeping an astonishing number of clean sheets at 109. And the fact that's well quoted about Bobby was between August 1946 and April 1952, he managed to make 179 consecutive appearances without missing a game, a feat that will surely never, ever, ever be repeated. Bobby won 3 league titles, 3 Scottish Cups, 2 League Cups, and went on to become a full Scottish internationalist, whom he would also later go on to manage, overseeing that famous victory over England at Wembley in 1970. Bobby Brown will rightfully go down as a legend of Rangers Football Club, so everyone here at Gersnet just wants to place on record our deepest sympathies to all of the family that he's left behind. So from there, what we'll do is we'll move on and we'll take a good look back at Friday night when Rangers returned to competitive action. Obviously, we've had the winter training camp over in Dubai, the mid-season friendly against Lokomotiv Tashkent that went very, very well, and we returned to competitive action at home against Stranraer in the Scottish Cup. It never set the heather alight. It was never one to get the juices flowing. But in my opinion, Colin, it was a professional performance, if not spectacular. What did you make of the performance on Friday?
Before we go on, I should point out that Scotland-England game when Bobby Brown was manager was 1967, and England were world champions at the time. Not to, make you look like a fool live on air, Ross, or anything like that. But the game on Friday. Sorry, as for the game on Friday, I kind of agree with you. I think it's just it was always going to possibly be one of those games that you just try and get through. Lower league side that are sort of struggling. It was obviously going to go with a seriously sort of weakened side. It didn't make for great viewing. One thing I would say is a big sort of doff of the hat to the attendance on the night. You know, it was a Friday night, January night, really cold, and you know, you would think supporters would maybe have an easy excuse not to go, but it was a healthy crowd, so fair play on that front. But the performance, you know, we were never really in danger, I don't think, of losing the game. We were a wee bit sloppy at times, but you know, we got through it, and that's the main thing. You know, we got through, and our name's in the hat, and we got Hamilton today in the draw. So I think it was just one of those.
No, I think that's fine. I mean, Stephen Gerrard in his post match has come out and said that at times he was bored. Obviously, the Scottish media has twisted that to say that Stranraer bored Gerrard, which isn't what he was saying at all. But at times, the game, it was never. Like I can see he's all on the YouTube stream already. Can we skip Friday night? I'm trying to forget about Friday night. It was a tedious watch. Totally agree, but we'll talk about it anyway. John, it was never exciting. It was slightly boring. What was your opinion of the game?
Oh, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I don't know what you're talking about. I like everybody else. It was one of these games where you're on to hiding to nothing. I know Stranraer, you know, with the best will in the world, Stranraer came, and if they could get a draw, they'd be really pleased. The minute they went one down, they weren't going to get a draw. They didn't threaten. We had several Fringe players there. You know, we got the result. We get into the next round. We didn't pick up any injuries as far as I know. That's all. It's the best you can hope for. I actually feel sorry for some of the players because I don't think there's a great deal can be expected against that. I mean, if you got out and won 6-0, it would just have been said, well, that's what's expected. As it was, we won 2-0 very, very comfortably. I think you take that and you move on. I can understand why people said it was boring. It certainly wasn't the most exciting game. It certainly wasn't as exciting as the game before it. And I think that's the kind of cloud nine we've been sitting on since then. So to come back to the Stranraer match, you know, I was pleased at the result. I'm pleased we're through. You know, I think no more of it.
Excellent. I'm dead excited to try and fill this segment out for another 14 minutes. Right. John mentioned Fringe players there. Obviously, off the top of my head, who do we have at starting lineup? We've got Edmondson, Halliday, Foderingham. Obviously, Brandon Barker's come on and got a wee run around. Did any of those Fringe players stake a claim for you? Did they do enough to put their name on Gerrard's mind and really push themselves to get into the starting 11 in the second half of the season?
The short answer, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think the young boy Patterson at right back showed something. But I mean, again, going back to what John was saying, it can be quite difficult in these games. You know, it's hard to judge players in these games. But, you know, the way it is just now, I would suggest that Stephen Gerrard's got a strong sort of 14-15 that he's going to go to all the time. And I think Friday's game represented an opportunity for your boys that are sort of 16th, 17th, 18th in the pecking line. You know, your Andy Hallidays and Edmondson's obviously struggled to get game time. And, you know, so it seemed to me that he went with enough experience, especially in the middle of the park. You know, Ryan Jack and Scott Arfield in there. But the guys that came in, I don't think so. And I think Gerrard slightly alluded to that at the end. You know, and he sort of said similar comments. We spoke about it last week in the show in the game in Dubai. You know, he made a comment about guys grabbing an opportunity and another guys pushing it further away. I don't think anyone really made a stake on Friday who's not getting game time at the moment. The young boy Patterson might come in because you know, obviously there's an issue with Tav at the moment, and I think he's out for a couple of weeks. So he might have staked a claim, but outside of that, no. I think what Friday proved is we've got a strong core. Maybe, as I said, 13, 14, 15 guys, and outside that, we're probably a wee bit thinner on the ground, I think.
Well, look, it's one of those where no matter who you put out, a Rangers team's expected to be a Stranraer side. Obviously, that's doubled when we're playing at home. So it's no surprise to see that rotation and see the Fringe players come in. As Max67 says here on YouTube, we will be playing our best team available now going forward in every game, and that's absolutely right. You know, guys on the stream here saying we need to play better in the next round, and that's true. Of course, we'll need to play better in the next round. You know, it's Hamilton. We've got a good record there, but we'll be putting out a stronger side. a couple of interesting wee stories coming around some of the fringe players. We'll talk about young Patterson in a moment, but John, there's some news today about Wes Foderingham. It was reported in the media up in Scotland talking about how he almost feels like he's wasted the last couple of years, and it's difficult for him to sort of imagine where his future is going to be. And, you know, obviously his contract only has so long left to run on it. How would you kind of rate Foderingham's prospects at Rangers? Obviously, McGregor's form is as good as it's ever been, and doesn't look like it's going anywhere soon. We've been doing this show now for 2.5, getting on 3 years. And in that time, we've kind of always been saying, look, I expect Foderingham to move on in search of first-team football. He's still there. He's still sat on the bench, and he's still turning out performances only against the likes of Stranraer. What chances does he have of a Rangers future? And do you kind of accept where he's coming from when he says he's possibly wasted the last 2 years?
I don't think he's wasted the last 2 years. I think he's been at a club that has got... And it's funny, you talked about Bobby Brown earlier. I think Rangers have, in my lifetime, have had a level of goalkeeper and a level of goalkeeper coaching that's probably the best in Scotland, and arguably as good as there is in the UK. You know, from right the way through, from guys like Andy Gorham, Chris Woods before him, but all the way through. You know, Alan McGregor. We take Alan McGregor for granted. I think we all forget that the McGregor actually came through our youth system. You know, he is one of the few shining lights that came through, and I think I don't think it's an accident that he's a goalkeeper, because I think we have a culture at Rangers, and have had for a long time, of producing and developing good goalkeepers. So I don't think Foderingham has wasted the last 2 years. I understand why he said it that way, because he hasn't been getting first team football. Now, I think we all have to be entirely honest here and say Alan McGregor's a better goalkeeper. Alan McGregor hasn't done anything to deserve being dropped, and as such, Foderingham has had to kick his heels on the sideline. Perhaps one of the reasons that McGregor's form has been so good is that Foderingham has been sitting on the sideline. You know, there is a goalkeeper there that I think we all rate. I think we all feel Foderingham was a guy that can come in and do a job. I don't think anyone thinks Foderingham did anything wrong. I think just McGregor's a better keeper. So I suspect he doesn't have a long-term future. I suspect that an English club, a League One club, maybe even a Championship club might come in for him. And I think he could go on and have a pretty good career. I think if he was at pretty much any other team in Scotland, he would be first choice. I think he's a good keeper. I think he's a nice guy. He comes across well every time he's been called in. I mean, we talked about the game on Friday night. You know, he didn't have a lot to do, but what he did, he did. You know, he commanded his box when he had to. His distribution was pretty good. He did everything that was asked of him. So I don't think he has a long-term future. If he leaves in the summer, he leaves with every wish, every good wish, and I hope he has a good future. However, there is a chance that he could be called on before the end of this season. You know, there is a chance that McGregor could pick up an injury. Frankly, there's a chance McGregor gets suspended. McGregor does have that wee bit about him where he just might get involved in something. He might just choose to half somebody. So Foderingham may well have a part to play. He may still have a cameo role before the season is done. So I hope we don't sell him. I do hope we keep him until the summer, and then I suspect he'll move on.
I totally agree with you, John. I think he'll be here till the summer. Because I don't think we can sell him now, because I don't really rate who we've got waiting in reserve behind him. I don't think Andy Firth is up to the task, and Robbie McCrory apparently is still a fair way away in his development. But I do sort of...
The guy Firth's still on the books, isn't he?
The guy Firth's still on the books. I'm sure he got a wee run out against Tash Kent.
That's right.
But I mean, I've not seen anything from him that suggests he's going to be a Rangers first team keeper. But I do sort of see where Foderingham's coming from. I don't like the way he's kind of phrased it, and maybe his words have been spun a wee bit in terms of wasting the last 2 years. But as Graham says here, being a number 2 goalkeeper is a tough job. And evening, Graham, it's good to have you with us again. But you're right, he will have learned a huge amount under McGregor, who's played in top leagues, not just Scotland and England, but obviously went abroad to Turkey for a little while. He's a full international, been around the block, and hopefully he will have learned a huge amount that will stand him in good stead for a strong footballing career. I mean, the guy's, 27, 28 maybe, Foderingham, so he's still got, in terms of a goalkeeper's career, a fair amount ahead of him. So, look, I agree, John, he's probably not got a long-term future, but he's one of these guys who has played an important role in striding us towards getting that league title back. So I don't think anyone will kind of complain when he moves on, and he'll go with everyone's thanks and best regards. Colin, we've mentioned young Nathan Patterson, who's come in, made a decent impression in their friendly over in Dubai, and then probably was most people's man of the match against Stranraer on Friday. He's kind of jumped ahead of John Flanagan and Matt Polster, who can both play at right back. Do you see Patterson now as Tav's deputy? If Tav's going to be missing for the next couple of weeks, do you think that Patterson's the one that will hold down that shirt, or would you be more in favour of going with the experience of someone like Flanagan or Polster?
I mean, I like Flanagan, but I just wonder about. I think Rangers, the system now is so dependent on the fullbacks. It seems to me that Steven Gerrard is replicating the sort of system that Liverpool are using under Klopp. You've got your midfield three that sort of, they're not overly creative. It seems to me that their job is to keep teams hemmed in and to get the ball as wide as often as possible. So I don't know if Flanagan would fit into that for me, and I'm not sure about Polster either. I mean, I've only seen Patterson a couple of times, but he was sending in decent deliveries into the box. So I would suspect that if Tav is out, I've not seen anything official yet, but there's some chat in the WhatsApp and here and there on Twitter and stuff like that about him having appendicitis. If that is the case and he's out for a couple of weeks, then I would say that Patterson's put himself in a very, very strong position just based on the system that Gerrard's using at the moment, because the last time we dropped points was at Pataudry, and we didn't look the same team that night, and Barisic was out, and Flanagan just didn't offer. Flanagan always comes inside, especially when he's on the left. I think Steven Gerrard wants his fullbacks to be on the line, going as far down as possible to try and get deliveries in from the byline and also from deep, also from getting over the halfway line and just looking and picking a pass. So I don't think that suits Flanagan. So I would be surprised if he goes in over the next couple of games. I would say, it's just my opinion, but I would say that the boy Patterson has given himself a real good shout if Tav's out for the next couple of weeks.
Well, look, it's good to see, I suppose, because I'm like you. I'm no convinced of how Polster and Flanagan fit into this system, and I don't particularly expect too much, particularly against St Mirren. I don't expect too much of a kind of pacey threat down the wing from them. So I think it's a kind of one of the safer league games that we could have Patterson playing in, and we've not done enough really to bring through young lads over the past 6 or 7 years, probably. So I've watched the guy as closely as possible, particularly on Friday night, and I'm with you. I think he probably is the right person to come in and deputise.
I would be amazed if he becomes our second choice right back. What's he? 18 years old, hasn't played a league game, and you think he'll come in ahead of Flanagan? I would be very surprised if he comes in ahead of Flanagan. I know he looked okay against Stranraer, but I don't think you can judge. I don't think you can judge any of the players in that game, but I certainly don't think you can judge a young fella. Like the rest of you said, it would be great if we could start developing young players, and at some point you got to play them. But I would be really surprised if he comes into that team ahead of Flanagan. Flanagan, I think Gerrard likes Flanagan. I think he's known him for a long time. I think he feels he is reliable, and to be fair, he is a right back. I agree with Colin. On the left, he has to keep coming inside. We'll be interested to see how he plays as a right back. I think he'll be a bit rusty, but I would be really surprised if the lad comes in, if Patterson comes in ahead of him. I really would.
Sorry, John. Sorry, Ross, on you go.
No, I'd argue that if we are going to bring through these players, and Patterson looks like one of the most talented young players we've had for a few years, I'd argue if we are going to bring them through, and we should be, then we need to start not just giving them friendlies and not just giving them Stranraer in the Cup. We need to give them league experience. And one of the safest ways to do that is against one of the weakest teams in the league and at home, and a team that's not set up to pose a pacey wing-based threat. I think it's the perfect time to do it.
The only concern I would have about bringing them in and the next couple of league games is a trip to Tynecastle. I know Hearts are struggling a wee bit, and they're not in the best shape at the moment. But even that game is always a tricky game for Rangers, I think. And that's probably maybe one game where I would think about bringing Flanagan in. But I'm with you, Ross. I think the boy showed enough. I think he's obviously been looked at by Gerrard, and Gerrard made a comment last week about speaking to Craig Mulholland about how he gets some of these young boys in the team. I think you're right, Ross. I think a home game against St Mirren would represent a good opportunity to give the boy a chance. Away to Hearts at Tynecastle would maybe go with the safer hands there and bring Flanagan in. But going back to what I said about the system, I don't think Flanagan fits into that system now. I think Rangers are so dependent on their fullbacks getting forward. They're relying on the two centre halves to be really strong, and that midfield three to the minute we lose possession, we are all over teams to try and get it back as quickly as possible. So I think the fullback positions are now, in terms of creating chances, are really important for Rangers, and I don't think Flanagan fits into
that. If he's not going to play him against Hearts, then he's not going to play him against St Mirren. I mean, you got to give somebody a run. Whoever's going to play against Hearts is going to play against St Mirren, I think. And this isn't, I haven't seen enough of Patterson. None of us have seen enough of Patterson. We've all heard fairly good things about him. He's not been out on loan, has he? I wasn't conscious of him out on loan. Do either of you two know if he's been out on loan for any period of time?
No, not that I'm aware of, no.
No, I'm not aware of him either. So this is a guy who is, as far as I know, has never played a league game. He's never been involved in a league game. I don't know. I don't think he's ready. I think it's nice to throw him in against Stranraer in the Cup, but it would be a massive gamble from Gerrard. This season is not about bringing two young players. This season's about winning the league, and as such, I think you play your strongest team. And as much as I don't like Flanagan, I don't like him as a person. I'm not particularly enamoured with him as a player. I would be very surprised if he doesn't start a right back when that team comes out on Wednesday night. Very surprised.
I think this actually ties quite nicely back into a couple of things that have been spoken about on the comments of the YouTube stream here. Robbo123 makes a really, really good point. Tactically, if we're playing Flanagan at fullback, you need to have a natural winger in front of him. So what you're saying there is that if you put Flanagan in at right back, because he doesn't pose the attacking threat that Tavernier certainly does, and that it appears that Patterson does, you need to have a natural pacey winger playing ahead of him. Now we're playing Ryan Kent on the left wing. If we've been playing Jordan Jones before he got injured, he was playing on the left wing, but we've been putting Joe Aribo out on the right-hand side, and he's been doing very, very well there, but he's not a natural pacey winger. He's more tricksy, he's more kind of bringing others into play. So that's why I think that if we are playing Flanagan on the right-hand side at fullback, it kind of dictates and it necessitates structural change, full structural change to kind of change the shape of the team. It means moving Joe Aribo away from the place where he's been most effective, packing that midfield again, trying to sort of artificially stick someone out on the right-hand side as a winger. And who do we do with that? Maybe Brandon Barker, who's not really set the header alight and proved his worth. Maybe Greg Stewart's played right wing in the past. I would say that it's no ideal, and it shows actually, this whole debate shows how crucial Tavernier is, because as soon as he's missing for 2 or 3 weeks, and by the way, I can't think of a time when he was last missing for 2 or 3 weeks in his entire Rangers career, we're kind of having quite a panicky debate about how do we facilitate him being absent. And I'm conscious that we could kind of rage this debate on throughout the evening, probably.
One thing before we move on, Ross, but are Rangers playing with wingers now? I don't think they are. I think Aribo and Kent play one in to allow your fullbacks. It's almost, at times, Rangers almost play a 2-3-5. Your fullbacks really push on. Your two sort of natural wide men in Kent, or whoever's on the right, it's Aribo at the moment. They seem to me to play the width of the penalty area, and Morelos is in the middle. So I don't think we play with wingers now. When the team that I see, we don't have wingers out in the wing. We have the fullbacks going up and down there, and Aribo and Kent playing one in. So I I struggle to see Flanagan fitting into that system. So it's either you go with the boy Patterson, who looks more like Tav in terms of his ability to get up and down and send in decent delivery, or you change the system entirely.
I totally agree with you, Colin. Now, sort of following on from that, we also have the discussion about how we lead the line, and obviously with Morelos being suspended for a little while, the obvious answer to that is Jermain Defoe. Defoe, I noticed, Colin, you kind of passed on a little stat earlier in the week that after he scored on Friday, Jermain Defoe has scored a competitive goal in every single year since the year 2000. Like, the guy is historically prolific. He's an incredible natural goal scorer and a real threat in front of goal. However, there was a comment on the YouTube about 15-20 minutes ago, and I'm scrolling back trying to find it. Stephen Saunders, there we go. As much as I love Defoe and his record is good, I still worry when he leads the line and he's more of an impact player now. And actually, despite the stats and despite the goal-scoring record, I agree with that. We are more dangerous and we look more dangerous and potent when Morelos is in. So do you worry, Colin, that actually we're having Defoe, despite being such a prolific goal scorer, despite being historic and setting records, we're not as dangerous when he's leading the line?
I think I went on record before, sort of, I think he can come on and do a job every now and again. If something was to happen to Morelos and we were going to rely on him for, say, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, then I would worry a wee bit. And again, you would maybe have to tinker with the system, because I think how you supply those two strikers is different. I think it was last week when we were talking about the January window, we were saying, what kind of players would you want to bring in? Because Gerrard said he would only bring one in if he got enough out. I asked the question last week on the show, well, what area do you think we need to strengthen? And I would go for a striker. And don't get me wrong, I'm delighted Defoe's here. I think he is a natural goal scorer. And he's, again, like talking about the young boys like Patterson and, all the rest of it. These guys, they must be so lucky now to beat Rangers, because every morning they're going into training and Steven Gerrard's there and Jermain Defoe's there. Defoe, famously teetotal, really looks after himself. If you're 17, 18 years old, going to work every day and looking for ideas and inspiration about how to make it as a professional football player, and he's your guy, and Gerrard's your guy. So these, the young boys at Rangers are now, they're so lucky that they've got people like that. And what Defoe brings to Rangers isn't just on the park. It is in that. I think we've seen an improvement in Morelos, and I think a lot of that's down to Defoe. But would I be happy with him leading the line for a prolonged period? I don't think it would be, no.
No, I completely agree. John, just a final word on Friday's action. It was the first home game since the turn of the new year. Traditionally, that means for Rangers the ceremony of the Loving Cup, which again, we've seen the pictures of the manager, of the directors, the director of football, and then the Stranraer directors as well, kind of toasting the Queen and hearing the story of the Loving Cup and the history behind that and how it was presented to us. A wee word on kind of that tradition and how important is it for Rangers to keep these kinds of traditions alive?
I think it's actually very important. When the Loving Cup won, it's interesting. It's something that I grew up with. It's something that you grew up with, Colin grew up with. Every Rangers supporter knows about the Loving Cup. And of course, it used to almost always be against Celtic, because traditionally the New Year's Day game where I was growing up was Rangers Celtic. So every second year it would be against Celtic, and then between the year it could be against anybody. That first home game, and this was just something that we grew up with. It's something that happened. I think at some point every Rangers supporter learns the story of how we got the Loving Cup, and it's a wonderful story, but it's a story from 1937. Yeah, it's I don't think my great grandparents had met in 1937. Far less my father being born. It's a long time ago, and yet this is still something we do, and that for me is part of being a Rangers supporter. There is a history to being a Rangers supporter. And but other clubs as well. Other clubs have history and they have these kind of things. So I think it's important that it continues. I think it's important that we the next generation learn about it. Trying to tell my children what a colliery disaster was, it's like someone telling me about the Boer War. I mean, it will just seem like something from another age to them. But it happened, and 30 men died, and families were left. This was, before health services, before these things existed, and these families were left with no breadwinner and in extreme poverty. And the fact that Rangers, A, were invited, were of such standing to be invited to play that game, and B, raised what was a tremendous sum of money at the time, I think is part of the story. It tells something about the standing of the club. It tells you something about the kind of man Bill Struth was, that he agreed to play this game. And I think that's vitally important. Now, I appreciate we are in different times. I know Rangers supporters who are not royalists. You don't have to be royalists. Nobody's making anybody take part in this. It's not like they're being forced to do it. This is something that happens in the boardroom, and I personally, and I'm no big royalist either, but personally, I'm perfectly happy for this to happen, and I can hope it continues to happen. I think it's a lovely tradition, and I hope it continues to happen.
Very much so. And last word on this from Chris here on YouTube. Loving Cup is a tradition, which is a good reminder of what Rangers is all about. We are a club of tradition. We are a club of standards, and it's a wonderful reminder of almost of a bygone era, of a different time, and when the city of Stoke was in need, Rangers came and answered the call and raised a monstrous amount of money. And it's to me, it is one of these kind of symbolic moments that really sums up Rangers as a club. Guys, from there,
just jump in on top of you there, and just to pick up on that if I can. And I know, well, the interesting, maybe Colin will agree with me, but you won't. When everything went to the wall under Mr. White, when we were at our lowest ebb, one of the things that upset me most was learning that we'd sold the
Arsenal shares.
Yeah, and it seems strange because they were largely symbolic. But the fact that we had them, the fact that they had been given to Bill Struth, the fact that they had remained in our club, the fact that we didn't do anything with them, we didn't interfere in Arsenal, but it was part of our tradition. And I was so upset, so angry that he sold them. And the Loving Cup is part of that, and that's part of being a Rangers supporter. I'll be reaching a milestone birthday this year, and these are things that are important. And I think, as I said, I think every football club has their own things, and not just Rangers. But as a Rangers supporter, these are things that we're taught. It's an Etienne bike. The Loving Cup is one of these things. And these traditions are important. They are a big part of who we are. And I agree with the guy who wrote in there.
Before we move on, Ross, I mean, one thing I would say about the Loving Cup is it's another example of how the club is perceived, in my opinion. Now, when people talk about the Loving Cup, they don't, and I'm talking about people outside the club here, they don't talk about the fact that Rangers were invited down to support a community at a time of need. They don't talk about the money raised. They just talk about the royal family part of it. And that's all I've seen on Twitter all weekend after that ceremony, what's the toasting the Queen and all that shite, all that nonsense. They totally ignore the positive side of it. Now, the royal family are there to be, criticised and shot at and all the rest of it. And that's for people to, to have their own opinions on that. But the strong charity side of it, which something which our neighbours are very much at promoting, that gets totally ignored. And it's a great tradition. I'm kind of like John. I'm not overly strong in the royal family, but I would never change that for the world. It's part of Rangers and it's part of who we are, and there's a real story behind it, and it should continue. But I've noticed recently people outside the club focus on, the other side of it, the part that maybe could be criticised. They don't talk about the charity side of it and the money raised and what Rangers done to help a city in need, all that kind of thing. That gets totally ignored. So it's a great tradition. It should be continued, and people outside the club should appreciate it and recognise it as a good tradition.
Aye, lads, very well said. And with that, I think we'll sort of flick back to the FITBA. St Mirren on Wednesday coming to Ibrox. Colin, St Mirren were quite a stuffy opponent earlier in the season when we went over to Paisley, needing a wee bit of magic from Borna Barisic hitting that spectacular free kick that kind of turned around his Rangers career. How much have we progressed since then, and do you expect this to be a slightly different encounter to what we saw a few months ago?
I think we've come on leaps and bounds since then. I mean, there were signs early on in the season, you know, obviously the first game of the season at Kilmarnock, we huffed and puffed, got the last minute winner. I was at a game up at St Johnstone, and until we went in nothing each at half time, and again we looked a bit devoid of ideas, came out the second half, got the goal, and that loosened us up a wee bit. And the game at St Mirren as well, you know, huffed and puffed until we got that goal. I would say from about November onwards, we have looked a strong side. We're coming on leaps and bounds. I think the tempo that we're playing at just now is, when we do it right, teams just can't live with us. And I'm including Celtic there. I mean, I know they won the cup final, but they were chasing shadows for long periods of that game. The game at Celtic Park, same thing. You know, they just couldn't live with the tempo. And the first goal against Celtic's an example of that. How we get the ball and at our corner flag, you know, and within 9-10 seconds it's nestling in the net, and it's all wee 1-2s, nice wee triangles, and we are playing very, very well at the moment. So I would expect it to be a very different game on Wednesday night. Obviously there's the issue with Tav, and although he's not having the best of seasons, I think he is integral in terms of the system that we're playing. But I don't see that being enough to derail us. I think if we play at the tempo and at the level that we have been playing for the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks, we should be home and hosed fairly comfortably.
Now, this was the point, John, that last season, obviously, we went into winter break level on points with Celtic, and then we came back after the winter break to face Kilmarnock, and it kind of all slightly unravelled from there. How do we ensure that doesn't happen this time and that we keep the momentum going? Because as Colin says, we have been in spectacular form over the last 6 to 8 weeks. Obviously, a minor blip up at Pittodrie. But, you know, the form that we're in is incredible in its league-winning form. How do you make sure that continues and that we don't have the rustiness? We never exactly got much of a blowout performance on Friday. Is there a danger that what happened 12 months ago could repeat itself?
I think there is a danger, yeah. I actually think St Mirren will be a harder match than Colin does. St Mirren actually in decent form. They've lost once in the last 5 league games. They don't score a lot of goals. They don't concede a lot of goals either. You know, they're a stuffy team. They're a physical team. As I said, they're not going to score many, but they're a hard team to break down. And I actually think it will be a harder game than maybe many of us do. I also think that we will miss. Well, we've mentioned Tav. We'll miss Tav. We'll miss Morelos. They're two big players for us. Arguably our two best players, but certainly two very important players going forward. They are. I don't have the stats, but I suspect if you were to look at it, those two have been involved in more than half of our goals, probably close to 70% of our goals between them. That's quite a lot to take out of any team. So I still think we'll win, but I think it'll be a harder match, and I could see it being a nervy one. I could see it being one of these horrible games. So what do we do? It's all about the mentality. It's all about how they work in it. I think that's what went wrong last season. I think we came out of the victory against Celtic. We went on our trip to, I think it was Spain last year, and I think we came back with Steve Davis, Jermain Defoe added to the squad, and I think we believed our own press. I think we went into the first game. I went to that Kilmarnock game away. It was a cold night. We took the lead and we sat back. One of the defenders made a mistake. I can't remember who it was now. One of the defenders made a mistake, gifted them a goal. And to be honest with you, after that, it was only going to be one winner. Kilmarnock were just more up for it. So we need to be ready for the fight, because St Mirren are fighting for points. A point they'll be delighted with a point. You know, they've a bit of daylight between them and Hearts, but they're one of 4 or 5 down at the bottom that will get dragged into the playoff place. at the very least. So the fact they're in decent form, I suspect that they will come to us. It will be 2 banks of 5, and they will quite happily play for nothing each. So mentality is going to be really, really important, Ross. I think that's probably the single most important thing is the guys this week being, they need to go into this game as if it's Celtic were playing. They need to go into this game knowing that only 100% will do. Anything less than that, and I think we could have a problem, to be quite honest with you.
You're absolutely right that the mentality is massive here. And we've spoken so much that over the course of the last few shows that this season has really been one of lessons learned from last season. We've learned from the mistakes that were made last year, and we're putting them right this time around. So I believe in the mentality of the players now, and I couldn't say that 12 months ago. I actually also agree with what Stephen's saying here on YouTube, is the fact that most of our upcoming fixtures are at home is massive for us. Ibrox is, it's of course a difficult place to go. Obviously only the one case of drop points at Ibrox this year, which was in the Old Firm earlier on in the season. And we're turning Ibrox into an incredibly difficult place for teams to visit. The fact that most of our games are at home is the polar opposite to last year when we had to go away to Kilmarnock in a cold January night, playing on that awful artificial surface. And then I think we did have quite a number of away games in quick succession. The fact that we have the games at home, I think, will be really, really important. We've kind of previewed this game talking about the lineup, talking about the Fringe players and Nathan Patterson potentially keeping his place. So, in the interest of time, we'll kind of move ahead away from that. The last question I have on the St Mirren game on Wednesday, Colin, 7.4 miles according to my Google Maps here between St Mirren Stadium and Ibrox Stadium. That's 12 minutes in the car. How many fans do you expect St Mirren Football Club to bring through?
Oh, I have no idea. They're not really traditionally known for bringing a big away support. So they'll have their usual couple of hundred in that corner, I think, but in the lobby booing, because that's all they do. St Mirren fans, they're fond of a good boo every now and again. And I'm sure, is that a song they sing all the time, the ball bags are blue? I'm sure that'll get aired, and you're not Rangers anymore. I'm sure that'll get a wee airing as well, the usual stuff. But no, I mean, St Mirren, they are what they are. They're a provincial club, and probably community based and Paisley and all that kind of thing. I don't expect them to bring a huge away support. Brought a huge support that time they won the cup final in 1987. And strangely, 30,000 turned out that day. But no, I don't expect much to come along, to be honest with you.
You see, I don't really mind St Mirren booing because, honestly, if I came from Paisley, I couldn't find it in myself to be confident or positive about anything either. So that's fine.
every Rangers fan for Paisley that's listening in, it's just logged off.
Sorry, everyone. The Garden City of Paisley. No, lovely airport though. Right, we'll kind of move away from St Mirren before I upset anyone else. We've had quite a big week, I'd say, off the park, Colin, particularly around our good friends over at the Scottish Football Association announcing a raft of charges against the club and against players, backroom staff, the whole lot of it. The way I've written it down here, these are trumped up nonsense charges, which seem to have only been announced on the day that Rangers returned to competitive action. What's the appropriate response from Rangers here? Because what we've had so far is Rangers have kind of put out a fairly brief and fairly, let's say, succinct statement saying, can't believe these charges. I think the word they've used is we are astounded at these charges, and we will make further comment after the weekend. So, right, the weekend's coming to an end. What's the appropriate response?
I don't really know, Ross, to be honest with you. I find it hard to believe that 3 weeks after that game we're still talking about this. And it happened last year as well. When we beat them on the 29th, there was the same sort of controversy that rumbled on. They seem to me to be a club incapable of accepting defeat. There's none of this, well, the best team won, let's just go on with it. There's always controversy, there's always reasons, there's always conspiracies. And it seems to me that there's obviously been some heavy leaning from Celtic on the SFA in terms of getting something up and running on this. It just seems nonsense, and even we spoke about it a wee bit in the show last week. Some of the stuff from, Celtic-minded correspondents in the media, your John Hartsons, your Chris Suttons. It astounds me that they hold down a position, because they can't hide their support, and they don't even do it in a sort of cheeky, funny way. They do it in quite a controversial way. I mean, I think Sutton's had 3 articles on Morelos since that game. It's just nonsense. It's nonsense. The highest, and today I noticed another sort of, he's a kind of well-known Celtic fan. He does the tours at Central Station, sort of big beard and all the rest of it. I can't remember his name. John Lyons, I think it is. And he was talking about conspiracies and how he wished that what's his name, the QC that died a couple of years ago, the sort of Celtic supporting QC. Paul McBride. If only Paul McBride was still alive, this stuff wouldn't be happening. And then a couple of Rangers fans came in and challenged him, and his retort was, everyone's got their opinion, it's only football. Well, John, if it's only football, don't be dragging dead QCs out the cupboard to support your argument. It staggers me. It really does. It absolutely staggers me. The only one team deserved to win the game that day, and that was Rangers. The stuff around Morelos, absolute nonsense. The stuff around Ryan Christie, Celtic seem to be alluding to the incident with the same 2 players last season. Now, that incident happened right in front of me, and the referee seen it. Now, initially, Christie stamps on Morelos, and Morelos retorts by giving a wee dunt in the groin, right? And the referee seen it, and I think he's thought, I'll let that go, because if I'm going to have to take action, I'm going to have to send both of them off, right? But Celtic are obviously alluding to that without mentioning the fact that Ryan Christie stamped on Morelos. He provoked a response and got it. Whereas that game that just passed, I was a wee bit surprised at Alan McCoist on Friday night. He was saying it was a disgrace that Christie, got a red card retrospectively. He deserved it. He had a booking. He's done it again. I don't know why the ref's not sent him off. And no one seems to be mentioning Bolingoli. That was another definite red card. You know what I mean? So I just find it staggering. And it actually, if this is what losing a game does to them, I actually think, well, what will happen when we eventually win that title again? You know what I mean? There'll be petitions. There'll be a queue a mile long at bloody, the Kingston Bridge. It'll just be absolute chaos, because they seem to me to be a club completely incapable. Maybe it's down to having it their own way for so long. When Rangers were on the journey back up, they were on easy street. It's maybe related to that. They maybe can't get back into a competitive mentality, but I actually doubt if I've ever had that. They seem to thrive on a conspiracy theory of, they seem to me to be the only club that thinks if it wasn't for Masonic referees and big bad Rangers, they would have won every single tournament in Scotland throughout the entire history of competitive football in Scotland. Because every defeat has a reason. But
Colin, just to be clear, I mean, are you saying that had Rangers not won that game on the 29th of December, we wouldn't be faced with these charges? And if so, is that no in itself a conspiracy theory?
No, I mean, if we hadn't won that game, it would have been a different game. You know what I mean? This has all happened because of the way the game played out. This thing that Morelos got a second booking or a third booking up the tunnel, I don't buy that for a start. I was speaking to someone who also does the pod, who has a few connections at the club, and apparently a Rangers security man was waiting for Morelos at the touchline, straight up the tunnel, straight into the dressing room. So I don't see where he would have had the opportunity to get another yellow card. So it just strikes me as nonsense, to be honest with you, and it just seems to me it's indicative of a club that just can't accept defeat, and there always has to be another reason for it. It actually depresses me at times. You know what I mean? I was on the show last week with David Wren, and he was sort of bemoaning the English game a wee bit, saying, it's becoming a bit plastic, half and half scarves and all the rest of it. But there still seems to be a level of common sense down there when it comes to football. Up here, it's just off the scale sometimes.
I'm amazed that you're amazed. I thought there was nothing surer than some sort of charges were going to come. I don't think the timing was accidental. I think the fact they came out and they were announced the day Rangers were playing was entirely
deliberate.
Somebody's part. I think if you look at the charges, let's ignore the fact that it took them so long to make them. Now, let's just ignore that for a second. The thing at the Hibs game, the two coaches were sent off. So, that's been dealt with. The referee saw it. And it was two guys shouting at each other and they lost their temper. I mean, there was no punches thrown. There was nothing like that. The two guys were sent off. As far as I can see, that's been dealt with. It's done. No harm done. The two guys get sent off. That's fine. Then, something similar at the Celtic game, where again, backroom staff, there's a bit of shouting at each other, are coming together. But again, the Rangers guy gets sent off. As far as I remember, he gets sent off, and feel free to correct me if I've got that wrong.
No, he was sent up at all.
So, that's what I thought. The fourth official saw it, reported that the referee sent him off. Again, that is dealt with. So, an argument can be made, and I'm trying to be as impartial as I can here. An argument can be made that, two games in fairly short succession where Rangers backroom staff have been sent off. Okay, we want to have a word with the club and what's going on here? How come this is happening? It's happening too often. It doesn't look good on TV. Setting the wrong, certainly setting the wrong kind of message out to, whatever, supporters, players, people watching, kids at home, whoever. I could kind of accept that. Grudgingly, I could accept that there's maybe grounds for a quiet word with the club. Okay. The Morelos gesture for me is just nonsense. It's a red herring. It was very clear what he was doing. Anyone who thinks he was telling 45,000 Celtic supporters he was going to kill them is demented, because it's clearly not what he was doing. He was clearly saying the game's done. The game's done.
It's worth pointing.
It's just rubbish.
It's worth pointing out, John, that the commentator in Sports Scene comments about it at the time, and saying that, he sort of says along the lines of, well, Morelos doesn't seem to care. He's suggesting that the game's over. The commentator at the time makes the comment that that's what he's saying. Game's done, doesn't matter.
We all realise that. So I'm just not accepting that. But the Kent one, is that's the one that astounds me. That, as far as I know, there's nothing they can do in terms of he can't get a retrospective booking for it. He can't be sent off for it. He can't get banned for it. It's a fine. It's a fine for the club if he's deemed to have broken some kind of rules. I remember Brian Laudrup, and I saw it with my own eyes. He scored against somebody. I know you know who it was, and he took the imaginary guns out the holster. He fired them. He blew the smoke away. Right. To be honest with you, didn't think it was the coolest celebration of a goal I've ever seen, but it was something that was happening. You saw it in kind of continental football. But I remember Brian Laudrup doing that very close to where I was at that game. That the whole thing, imaginary things with guns, guys shooting guns or shooting arrows and things. Footballers do that all over the world. I am just staggered that anybody thinks that is something worth following up. And that, for me, is a concern. I was not surprised in the slightest that pressure was applied to the SFA. They've been under pressure for the last 3 weeks, and we only see the stuff that gets in the media. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors. We don't know what kind of manoeuvring is going on. For whatever we think of Peter Lawwell, he's a canny operator. He's politically very strong. They spent their time when we were plundering around fishing ports of the northeast. They spent their time putting people they wanted in positions in Scottish football. So it didn't surprise me in the slightest that there was more to come from the SFA on that game. It didn't surprise me in the slightest. The timing stinks. 2 of the charges are total nonsense, but the fact that we're getting them came as no surprise at all. And I'm sorry if that makes me sound like I should be wearing a tinfoil hat, but it didn't come as a surprise. I expected it. I just didn't expect it to take 3 weeks.
I think that's a key point there, John. The fact that it takes 3 weeks and comes out hours before we return to football. Chris here makes a very good point. Robbie Keane shot guns in celebration for a number of years, and that's the one I had in my mind as well. Of course he did, but the Ryan Kent one is, I agree, it's just astounding. It is. I'm sorry to use the same word that Rangers have used, but it's madness. As if anyone in that stadium actually felt threatened, actually felt, oh my God, that guy's going to shoot me, and that's what he means by this. Piss off today. He was celebrating a goal scored against the biggest rivals in British football. Like it's madness. But there we go.
By the way, Ross, it'll only get worse. We're getting closer, and John's right. All is pretty good at what he does, but he's also got a lot at stake here. He's got a budget that far surpasses our own. His next on the line here. We are effectively a point in front of them. We win our game in hand, we are a point in front of them. So we're closer now than we've ever been on a smaller budget. If that continues in Easter time and April time, it'll just get worse. It'll be an absolute. I don't even want to imagine what it'll be like come that time if we are breathing down their necks and pushing them for this title, because they don't know how to take it.
No, listen, I 100% agree. There's a very good comment here from Arizona Bay. Just waiting on Scott Arfield getting cited for a salute when he's not really in the military. And actually, it's not even as ridiculous as it sounds. It's been a staggering revelation over the last couple of days. Lads, with just a couple of minutes left, there's one last thing I'd like to talk about. We got a message through the week asking for us to kind of have a wee look at a little bit more around the women's football side of things, particularly with Rangers becoming the first team in Scotland for their women's set up to turn professional. Colin, I think that most fans think that this is a good thing. It's a really nice sign for Rangers to be investing a hell of a lot of money actually in the women's side. Obviously, Gregory Vignal taking over the coaching duties there. You can see through social media the number of players that have been signed recently for the Rangers team from well-established ladies teams over the world, actually from Europe and further afield. I think it's a great sign. But are people actually going to bother turning up to the games? I mean, are you, as a kind of local Rangers fan, are you actually going to bother going to watch?
The chances are no, Ross, but that's not a sign of how I view women's football. It's more, I have other commitments, so I'd have to juggle a lot to get to the games that I get to, to try and do that again for. The women's team would be a big ask, and one, ironically, that my female wife would probably not appreciate. But no, it's good that the club are doing this. And I actually, a few years back, an old job, we used to have a game of fives on a Wednesday afternoon, and there was a female there, a girl called Shelley Valley. She was a Scottish internationalist, and I have to say, she was easily one of the better players there. She was an absolutely outstanding player. So it's good that football in general is catching up and putting more sort of spotlight in the women's game and getting professional women's teams and all the rest of it. But you have to remember a lot of supporters, especially guys at my age, maybe if I was younger and I didn't have any commitments, but when you get to your sort of mid-40s and you've got a wife and wains and all the rest of it, you have to do a lot to get to the games that you want to go to. So it would be unlikely that I'll be going to a lot of them. I'll maybe try and get one or two at some point, but it certainly won't become something that's a regular on my footballing calendar. But I again, try and stress that isn't really reflective of my view of women's football. I'm not sitting there going, I'm not going to that because that's rubbish. It's just because I have other commitments. I think the club deserve credit and good luck to the team when they're up and running.
John, how about yourself as a last word on this? I mean, do you think it's a good thing for the image of the club that we've managed to be the first team in Scotland to set their ladies set up professional?
I don't know. I'm torn on this. I can't decide whether the female professional game is becoming thing. I mean, certainly you see in England, it's getting more and more coverage. If some of the bigger games have drawn half decent crowds. There's more money going into it. My worry is we don't have the same disposable income as the big English teams. It's a summer league, the Scottish Women's League, isn't it? Have I got that right?
I think that's that.
Yeah. So I don't know if maybe they're looking at it. I mean, I think I'm going to put my cynical hat on and say that I think they're looking at it as does this have potential to raise money? Because I think that whatever Rangers do, it should be about making sure that we have the best men's professional team. And I wouldn't like us to be doing anything that would take our eye off that. I remember, you won't remember this, but Colin might remember this. I remember Rangers had a basketball team. Professional basketball, semi-professional.
I went to see them, John. They used to play at Coasters Arena.
Coasters Arena, that's right. I went as well once. And, they had a basketball team. And I think they won the league one year. I think they won the inaugural league. They were pretty good. And they used to appear in the Rangers news. And it came to nothing. It was a bit of news for a couple of seasons. And then I don't know what happened to them. It was like a motor racing team. It was going to be like a rival to Formula One a few years ago. I don't know if any of you remember that. Rangers had a car in it. It's that kind of thing. So the club have been involved. I mean, you go far enough back, Ross, there was a thing called Rangers Sports, where it was an big athletics tournament every summer. So the club have always been involved in other things other than men's football. I think this is the next thing. I wish them every success. I don't have a huge issue with this at all. I personally think it unlikely that I will be going for the same reasons as Colin. I struggle to find time to go and see Rangers. I can't see me being able to go and see this, but you never know. You never know. Maybe it'll take off. Maybe the club have a vision for this that puts on summer football, something for the sports to go along. I don't know, but I wish them every success. But no, unfortunately, I don't think at this stage it's something that I will be going to see myself. So I'll leave that one to you, Ross.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'll go. And judging by the comments we've got here, a fair few others will be going, but possibly not necessarily just to watch the football. But I'll kind of let you explain that to your wives and girlfriends. That's fine. Guys, I'm going to wrap this up before something politically incorrect gets said. So,
I thought we'd done pretty well there for a couple of old guys been asked about football.
Actually, I was actually going to ask a question. Like, I know the Billy Boys is banned, but is the Billy Girls okay?
That's
well, I mean,
does that me cross the line now?
Oh, listen, as the host here, I'm walking a really, really narrow tightrope.
Okay.
I'm going to wrap that up there. Guys, listen, I'd like to say a massive thank you to both of you, to John and to Colin, for your insightful contributions this evening. To everyone listening, thanks for getting in touch on the YouTube page. We've had probably the most comments we've ever had in a show that we've been doing, so that's really, really, really grateful for that. Make sure you head over to the website www.gersnet.co.uk, where you can catch up on all the latest news and opinions, as well as a very friendly discussion forum where you can get in touch with myself, with Colin and with John. Remember, as I said, the show will be back next Sunday with another pod. In the meantime, you can find the three of us slagging each other off on Twitter. All that's left for me to say is a massive, massive and sincere thank you to everyone for listening, and have a great week.